your continued viewership. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing our global reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Perfect Facades. David Sterling had built his life on precision. At 42, he commanded respect in the boardroom and fear among his competitors. His pharmaceutical consulting firm, Sterling Solutions, had made him wealthy beyond measure, but more importantly, it had taught him that every problem had a solution. You just had to be ruthless enough to find it. The Sterling Mansion in Westchester County stood as testament to David's success. 23 rooms, manicured gardens, and a security system that would make Fort Knox jealous. Inside, his wife Katie moved through their perfect life like a ghost in designer clothing. At 38, she still turned heads with her auburn hair and emerald eyes, but David had noticed the distance growing between them over the past year. Their daughter Emma was the light of David's world. At 11, she possessed his sharp intellect and her mother's beauty. She excelled in everything: violin, mathematics, horseback riding. David had plans for her future, detailed blueprints that would ensure she never wanted for anything. But perfection, David had learned, was often an illusion. It started with Emma's complaints about neck pain. Sharp, persistent aches that made her wince during violin practice. Katie dismissed it as growing pains, but David insisted on taking her to Dr. Morrison, their family physician. The initial examination revealed nothing obvious, and Morrison suggested it might be stress or poor posture. Maybe she's spending too much time hunched over her books, Katie had suggested, her voice carrying that distant quality David had grown to despise. But the pain persisted, growing worse. Emma began having trouble sleeping, and David noticed her rubbing the back of her neck constantly. When she started getting headaches during school, David made a decision. "We're taking her to get her hair done," he announced one Saturday morning. Sometimes a good scalp massage helps with tension. Katie's face went pale for just a moment. So brief David almost missed it. That's probably a good idea," she stammered. The Salon Laurent was where Katie got her hair done monthly. David had been there countless times, waiting in the plush chairs while she underwent her treatments. The owner, Marcel, greeted them warmly when David arrived with Emma. "Monsieur Sterling, what a pleasant surprise. And beautiful Emma, how you've grown." Emma smiled shyly as Marcel led her to a chair. "Just a wash and trim," David instructed. "She's been having some neck tension lately." As Marcel began working, chatting animatedly about school and hobbies, David watched in the mirror. Emma seemed more relaxed than she had in weeks. The warm water and gentle massage were clearly helping. Then Marcel's hands stopped moving. The French stylist's face changed, his usual animated expression replaced by something David had never seen before: horror. Marcel's fingers remained frozen at the base of Emma's neck, and when his eyes met David's in the mirror, David felt his blood turn to ice. "Sir," Marcel's accented voice was barely a whisper. "This doesn't look right." David leaned forward, his heart hammering. "What do you mean?" Marcel's hand trembled as he gently moved Emma's hair aside. "There's something here. Small holes. Like needles." The world tilted. David shot to his feet, moving behind the chair to see what Marcel had discovered. There, hidden beneath Emma's thick hair, were tiny puncture marks, barely visible, but unmistakably deliberate. A pattern of small wounds, some healed, others more recent. Emma looked confused, craning her neck to see what had caused such alarm. "Daddy? What's wrong?" David's mind raced, cataloging possibilities, discarding innocent explanations. His pharmaceutical background made him acutely aware of what those marks could represent. Someone had been injecting something into his daughter's neck. Someone with medical knowledge. Someone with access. "Marcel." David's voice was deadly calm. "I need you to take photographs. Do it now." As Marcel fumbled for his phone, David's thoughts crystallized into a singular, terrifying certainty. The random nature of Emma's pain, Katie's dismissive attitude, the way she'd paled when he suggested the salon visit, it all formed a picture that made his blood boil. Someone was using his daughter as a test subject, and his wife knew about it. Chapter 2. Unraveling Trust. David's hands remained steady as he watched Marcel document the injection sites. But inside, a cold fury was building. He'd built his career on reading people, on seeing through lies and deception. How'd he miss this? "Emma, sweetheart," he said, his voice carefully controlled. "Has anyone given you any shots lately? Maybe at school?" Emma shook her head, her eyes wide with confusion. "No, Daddy. Just my regular checkups with Dr. Morrison." "Dr. Morrison." David filed the name away for later investigation. "What about a home? Has anyone helped you with anything? Maybe given you vitamins or medicine?" "Just the vitamins Mommy gives me every morning," Emma said innocently. "The new ones that taste funny." David's jaw tightened. "New vitamins?" "Yeah. She said they'd help me grow stronger. But they make me sleepy sometimes." Marcel finished taking photos and stepped back, his face grim. "Monsieur Sterling, perhaps you should." "Call the police," David finished. "Yes, I think that's exactly what we should do." As Marcel stepped away to make the call, David knelt beside Emma's chair. His daughter's trusting eyes nearly broke him. She had no idea that someone, possibly her own mother, had been systematically drugging her. "Am I in trouble, Daddy?" Emma whispered. "No, baby, you're not in trouble. But someone hurt you, and we're going to find out who." The police arrived within 15 minutes. Detective Lisa Rodriguez was a sharp-eyed woman in her 30s who immediately took control of the situation. She photographed the injection sites herself, took statements from Marcel, and arranged for Emma to be examined at the hospital. "Mr. Sterling," Rodriguez said quietly as the EMTs prepared to transport Emma, "I need to ask you some difficult questions. Who has access to your daughter? Who could have done this without being noticed?" David's mind was already 3 steps ahead. "My wife, Katie. Our housekeeper, Mrs. Chun, but she's been with us for 8 years. Dr. Morrison, our family physician. And," he paused, remembering something. "My wife has been seeing a new doctor lately. Someone she met at her yoga class." "What kind of doctor?" "She said he was a psychiatrist. Dr. Alex Hoffman. She claimed he was helping her with anxiety." David's voice turned bitter. "I thought it was odd that she needed private sessions at his home office." Rodriguez made notes. "We'll need to speak with your wife." "Where is she now?" "At her book club," David lied smoothly. He knew exactly where Katie was. She'd left that morning claiming to meet her reading group, but David had noticed she'd taken her overnight bag. "I can call her." But David had no intention of warning Katie. He needed time to think, to plan. As the ambulance pulled away with Emma, he turned to Rodriguez. "Detective, I need you to understand something. My daughter is the most important thing in my world. If someone has been experimenting on her, using her as some kind of test subject, I will find out who and why. And they will pay for it." Rodriguez studied his face. "Mr. Sterling, I understand you're angry, but you need to let us handle this. Don't take matters into your own hands." David nodded, but his smile was cold. "Of course, Detective. I'm a law-abiding citizen." The lie came easily. David Sterling followed laws when they served his purpose. When they didn't, he created his own rules. An hour later, at the hospital, Emma was undergoing a comprehensive examination. David sat in the waiting room, his mind working furiously. He pulled out his phone and began making calls, not to Katie, but to people who owed him favors. Private investigators, security specialists, people who operated in the gray areas between legal and necessary. The first call was to Vincent Torres, a former FBI agent who now ran a discreet investigation service. "Vincent, it's David. I need everything you can find on Dr. Alex Hoffman, psychiatrist. I also need surveillance on my wife, Katie Sterling. And I need it yesterday." The second call was to Dr. Patricia Walsh, a toxicologist who'd consulted for his company. "Patricia, I need a favor. My daughter may have been given unknown substances. I need you to run every test imaginable." The third call was to his lawyer, who would ensure that whatever David discovered could be used effectively. By the time the doctor emerged with Emma's results, David had set in motion a machine designed for one purpose: uncovering the truth. The blood work showed traces of several experimental compounds. Nothing immediately life-threatening, but clear evidence of systematic drugging. "Mr. Sterling," the emergency room physician said, "your daughter has been given what appears to be a cocktail of experimental medications. We're not sure of the long-term effects yet, David's expression didn't change, but inside, something fundamental shifted. The man who'd built an empire through calculated moves and ruthless efficiency began planning the most important project of his life, destroying whoever had dared to hurt his daughter. As he drove home with Emma safely beside him, his phone buzzed with a text from Katie, "Book club running late. Home tomorrow morning. Love you both." David deleted the message without responding. Tomorrow morning, Katie would walk into a trap 20 years in the making. Chapter 3. The investigation begins. David's home office was a monument to control. 3 monitors displaying real-time data feeds, secure communication systems, and files that could make or break companies. Tonight, it became a war room. Emma was safely asleep upstairs, sedated by the hospital and watched over by Mrs. Chun, who'd been visibly shaken by the news. David had explained only that Emma had been hurt and that security would be increased. Mrs. Chun, loyal to a fault, asked no questions. Vincent Torres arrived at midnight, carrying a laptop and a grim expression. The former FBI agent had aged well at 55, his gray hair and weathered face giving him the appearance of someone who'd seen humanity's worst impulses. "Your wife is at the Grandview Hotel," Vincent announced without preamble. "Room 412. She's not alone." David's fingers tightened on his coffee cup. "Dr. Hoffman?" "Among others." "David, what I'm about to tell you is going to hurt." "I'm listening." Vincent opened his laptop, revealing surveillance photos taken through telephoto lenses. Katie was clearly visible entering the hotel with a man David didn't recognize, tall, dark-haired, wearing expensive clothes. But what made David's blood boil was the third figure, Dr. Rebecca Morrison, their family physician's wife. "Dr. Hoffman isn't a psychiatrist," Vincent continued. "He's a biochemist who lost his medical license 3 years ago for conducting unauthorized human trials. The couple he's with, the Morrisons, they're in this together." David studied the photos with the detachment he'd cultivated in business. "How long?" "Based on financial records, at least 18 months. Money's been flowing from offshore accounts into their personal finances." "But David, it gets worse." Vincent pulled up another screen showing medical records. "Emma isn't their only victim. There are 4 other children, all from wealthy families, all showing similar symptoms. The parents think they're getting cutting-edge treatments for various conditions." "What kind of treatments?" "Cognitive enhancement drugs. Experimental compounds designed to increase intelligence, memory, focus. Your wife volunteered Emma as a test subject for money." Vincent's voice was carefully neutral. "A lot of money. $2 million over 18 months. David stood and walked to the window, looking out at his perfectly manicured grounds. In the distance, security lights illuminated the property's perimeter. Everything looked normal, peaceful, but beneath the surface, his world had been systematically violated. "The other children?" he asked. "2 have suffered permanent neurological damage. 1 is in a medically induced coma. The 4th seems to be responding well, but it's too early to tell long-term effects." David turned back to Vincent. "I want everything. Bank records, communication logs, travel patterns, associates. I want to know every breath they've taken for the past 2 years. David, you need to be careful. These people are dangerous. Hoffman has connections to some very unpleasant individuals." "Good." David's smile was predatory. "I prefer dangerous opponents. They make better examples." Vincent closed his laptop. "What are you planning?" "Justice," David replied. "Katie made a choice when she sold our daughter's safety for money. Dr. Hoffman and the Morrisons made a choice when they decided to use children as lab rats. Now I'm going to make some choices of my own." At 3 a.m., David's secure phone rang. Detective Rodriguez's voice was tense. "Mr. Sterling, we tried to reach your wife. The phone number you gave us is disconnected." "That's interesting," David said, though he wasn't surprised. Vincent had already confirmed that Katie had been using burner phones for months. "We also ran Dr. Hoffman's credentials. There's no record of him being licensed in New York. Mr. Sterling, I think your wife might be in danger." David almost laughed. Katie was in danger, but not from Hoffman. "Detective, I appreciate your concern. Is there anything else I should know?" "We're getting a warrant for Dr. Morrison's office. And Mr. Sterling? We may need you and Emma to testify eventually. Of course, we'll cooperate fully. After hanging up, David opened a secure email and began typing. His message went to 12 different recipients across 3 continents, specialists in various fields who'd worked with him over the years. By morning, he would have a complete psychological profile of each target, detailed financial analysis, and most importantly, a comprehensive assessment of their vulnerabilities. David Sterling had spent 20 years building a network of relationships based on mutual benefit and absolute discretion. Tonight, he would begin calling in every favor, leveraging every connection, and utilizing every resource at his disposal. The 4 people who'd use his daughter as a test subject thought they were dealing with a wealthy businessman who would rely on the police and lawyers to seek justice. They were about to discover their mistake. David was many things: CEO, philanthropist, devoted father. But before any of that, he was a predator who'd simply been sleeping. And now, someone had threatened his cub. As dawn broke over Westchester County, David Sterling began the most important project of his life: the complete and utter destruction of everyone who dared to harm his daughter. The hunt had begun. Chapter 4. Homecoming. Katie Sterling returned home at 8:47 a.m., her overnight bag slung casually over her shoulder, her face arranged in the expression of mild fatigue that comes after a late night with friends. She looked beautiful in the morning light, her auburn hair catching the sun, her movements graceful and practiced. David watched her from his office window, noting every detail. The way she checked her phone before entering. The brief pause as she noticed the additional security cameras Vincent had installed overnight. The almost imperceptible tension in her shoulders as she approached the front door. She was afraid, but trying not to show it. Good. Fear would make her careless. Honey, Katie's voice echoed through the foyer. David, is Emma ready for school? David descended the stairs with measured steps, his expression carefully neutral. Emma's not feeling well. She's staying home today. Katie's face showed concern, but David caught the flicker of something else. Calculation. What's wrong? Should I call Dr. Morrison? That won't be necessary, David said smoothly. In fact, I think we should discuss Emma's health. My office. Now, Katie followed him, and David could feel her growing tension. In his office, he gestured to the chair across from his desk, the same chair where he'd interviewed executives before destroying their careers. Coffee, he offered. David, you're scaring me. What's going on? Yesterday, I took Emma to the salon. David settled behind his desk, his fingers steepled. Marcel found something interesting. Katie's face went white, but she maintained her composure. What do you mean? David activated his computer, and the photos from the salon filled the screen. Katie's sharp intake of breath was the only sound in the room. Those are injection sites, Katie. Someone has been systematically drugging our daughter. David's voice remained conversational. The police are very interested in finding out who. Katie's hands trembled as she gripped the chair arms. David, I can explain. Please do. David leaned back, the picture of patient attention. I'm fascinated to hear your explanation for how our 11-year-old daughter ended up with experimental drugs in her bloodstream. The silence stretched between them. David could see Katie's mind racing, calculating odds, weighing options. She'd always been intelligent. It was one of the things that had attracted him to her 20 years ago. But intelligence without character was just cunning. Wasn't supposed to hurt her, Katie whispered finally. David felt something cold settle in his chest. Even knowing the truth, hearing her confess still hit like a physical blow. Go on. Alex said the compounds were safe. Revolutionary. They were going to make children smarter, more focused, better able to compete in the future. Katie's words came faster now, as if confession might somehow lead to absolution. Emma was struggling in math, and I thought, you thought you'd use our daughter as a test subject for experimental drugs. David's voice cut through her explanation like a blade. For money. Katie flinched. It wasn't about the money. $2 million, Katie. That's quite a lot of money for someone who claims it wasn't about money. The color drained completely from Katie's face. How do you know about your offshore accounts? Your secret meetings? Your partnership with Dr. Hoffman and the Morrisons. David smiled, and Katie shrank back. I know everything, Katie. The question is, what am I going to do about it? Katie's composure finally cracked. Tears streamed down her face as she dropped to her knees beside his chair. David, please. I never meant for Emma to get hurt. Alex promised the drugs were safe. He showed me studies, testimonials from other parents. Other parents whose children are now in comas or suffering permanent brain damage. David's voice was ice. Did he mention that part? I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Katie sobbed. When Emma started having pain, I wanted to stop, but Alex said it was normal, that it would pass. So you kept injecting her. Just a few more times. He said we were on the verge of a breakthrough. Katie looked up at him with desperate eyes. David, I love Emma. I would never intentionally hurt her. David studied his wife's face, the woman he'd married, the mother of his child, the person he'd trusted above all others. She was telling the truth about loving Emma, he realized. In her twisted way, she genuinely believed she was helping their daughter. That made it worse. Where's Hoffman now? David asked. I don't know. He left the hotel this morning. Said he had to take care of something. Katie wiped her eyes. David, what are you going to do? David stood and walked to his safe, retrieving a folder he'd prepared that morning. I'm going to give you a choice, Katie. Option 1. You cooperate fully with the police investigation. You testify against Hoffman and the Morrisons. You plead guilty to child endangerment and serve whatever sentence the court deems appropriate. He placed the folder on his desk. Option 2. I destroy you. Katie opened the folder with shaking hands. Inside were copies of bank records, surveillance photos, medical reports, and communication logs that painted a complete picture of her betrayal. The police will have these records within the hour, David continued. But that's not all. I've also prepared a comprehensive package for the IRS regarding your undeclared income. The medical board will receive detailed evidence of your conspiracy with unlicensed practitioners. And your parents, your sister, your friends, they'll all receive copies of the surveillance photos showing you entering the hotel room with your lovers. Katie's face crumpled. Lovers? Did you think I didn't know about your affair with Hoffman? Or with Dr. Morrison? David's smile was cruel. I have photos, Katie, videos, audio recordings. Your entire sordid relationship documented in exquisite detail. David, please. But that's still not all. David moved closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. Because you see, Katie, I've also identified 13 other families whose children were victims of Hoffman's experiments. Families with resources. Families with connections. Families who will be very interested to know that you were the recruiter who identified vulnerable children. Katie's sobbing intensified, but David felt no pity. 13 families who will pursue civil suits, who will ensure you spend the rest of your life in poverty, if you're lucky enough to stay out of prison. What do you want from me? Katie choked out. Everything, David replied. I want Hoffman's location. I want the names of everyone involved. I want account numbers, research data, and client lists. I want you to help me destroy the entire network. Katie looked up at him through her tears. And if I do that, what happens to me? David returned to his chair, his expression thoughtful. If you cooperate fully, I'll ensure you receive the minimum possible sentence. You'll lose everything, your freedom, your reputation, your family, but you'll survive. And if I don't? David's smile was the last thing Katie saw before she passed out. Chapter 5. The Network Exposed. Dr. Alex Hoffman sat in his temporary laboratory, reviewing the latest data from his test subjects. The converted warehouse in Queens was far from ideal, but it served his purposes. Security cameras monitored every entrance, and his hired protection ensured privacy for his work. At 53, Hoffman had dedicated his life to pushing the boundaries of human potential. His theories on cognitive enhancement had been decades ahead of their time, which explained why the medical establishment had been so threatened by his research. Losing his license had been a setback, not a defeat. The Sterling girl had been responding particularly well to the new compound series. Her IQ scores had increased by 37 points over 18 months, and her pattern recognition abilities were approaching genius level. The neck pain was an unfortunate side effect, but temporary discomfort was a small price for evolutionary advancement. His phone buzzed with a text from Katie. David knows. Need to meet urgently. Hoffman deleted the message without responding. He'd expected this eventually. Wealthy parents were notoriously protective, and David Sterling had a reputation for being particularly ruthless in business. The man would undoubtedly threaten legal action, demand explanations, perhaps even contact authorities. It didn't matter. By tomorrow, Hoffman would be on a plane to Switzerland, where his research was not only legal but funded by progressive investors who understood the importance of advancing human evolution. He was wrong on every count. At 3:17 p.m., Vincent Torres walked into the warehouse through the front entrance, badge displayed, flanked by 6 federal agents. Hoffman's security team offered no resistance. Vincent had visited them earlier with photographic evidence of their involvement in child abuse. The choice between cooperation and lengthy prison sentences had been easy. Dr. Alexander Hoffman, Vincent announced, "You're under arrest for child endangerment, practicing medicine without a license, and conspiracy to commit assault." Hoffman remained calm as the handcuffs clicked into place. "I want my lawyer." "You'll need one," Vincent agreed. "But first, let's talk about your research." In the warehouse's makeshift laboratory, federal agents documented everything. Vials of experimental compounds, detailed medical files on dozens of children, financial records showing payments from desperate parents, and most damning of all, video recordings of Hoffman describing his subjects as acceptable losses in the advancement of science. But the real prize was Hoffman's computer, which contained communications with a network spanning 12 countries. Dr. Rebecca Morrison was just one node in an international conspiracy that had been using children as test subjects for cognitive enhancement research. Back at Sterling Mansion, David received Vincent's report with grim satisfaction. Hoffman was in custody, but the network was larger than anyone had imagined. The investigation would take months, possibly years. Justice through the legal system would be slow, uncertain, and ultimately unsatisfying. David had different plans. That evening, he visited Emma in her room. She was reading one of her advanced mathematics textbooks, but looked up with a smile when he entered. "How are you feeling, sweetheart?" "Better, Daddy. The doctor said the medicine will help my body get strong again." Emma's trust was absolute, heartbreaking. "When can I go back to school?" "Soon," David promised. "But Emma, I need to ask you something important. Do you remember anything about the vitamins Mommy gave you? Anything unusual?" Emma thought carefully. "They tasted funny, and sometimes they made me feel strange, like everything was too bright or too loud. But Mommy said that meant they were working." David kissed her forehead. "You don't have to take those vitamins anymore. And Emma, you're perfect exactly as you are. Never let anyone tell you otherwise." After Emma fell asleep, David returned to his office to find Katie waiting for him. She'd spent the day in police custody, providing detailed statements about the network. Her cooperation had been complete, but her appearance suggested the weight of her betrayal was finally hitting her. "David," she said quietly, "I know you'll never forgive me, but I need you to know I really thought I was helping her." David studied his wife's face. 20 years of marriage, and he was seeing her clearly for the first time. "Do you know what the worst part is, Katie?" She shook her head. "It's not the betrayal. It's not even the fact that you sold our daughter's safety for money." David's voice was eerily calm. "It's that you're still trying to justify it. Even now, after seeing what you've done, you're still trying to make yourself the victim." Katie's face crumpled. "What happens now?" Now you face the consequences." David opened his desk drawer and withdrew a single sheet of paper. "Divorce papers. You'll sign them, and you'll accept my terms without negotiation." Katie read the document, her face growing paler with each line. "You're taking everything. The house, the accounts, Emma. You lost the right to Emma when you decided to use her as a lab rat." David's tone was final. "You'll have supervised visitation once a month, assuming you're not in prison." "David, please. Those are my terms. Accept them, or I'll ensure you never see Emma again." Katie signed the papers with shaking hands. As she set down the pen, David made one final offer. There is one way you can earn a small measure of redemption, Katie. She looked up hopefully. Help me find the other networks. Help me identify every child who's been harmed. Help me destroy every person involved in this conspiracy. David leaned forward. Dedicate whatever life you have left to undoing the damage you've helped create. Katie nodded through her tears. I'll do anything. Good, David replied. Because tomorrow, we're going hunting. Chapter 6. The Hunt Begins. The private jet lifted off from Teterboro Airport at dawn, carrying David Sterling, Vincent Torres, and two specialists toward their first target. Dr. Rebecca Morrison, who had fled to her family's compound in Montana upon learning of Hoffman's arrest. David had spent the night reviewing everything Katie had revealed during her extended debriefing. The network was more sophisticated than anyone had imagined. A loose confederation of disgraced medical professionals, wealthy parents seeking advantages for their children, and investors betting on the future of human enhancement. Dr. Morrison had been the network's chief recruiter, identifying families with gifted children and parents desperate enough to risk experimental treatments. Her husband Thomas had provided medical legitimacy while remaining officially uninvolved. Together, they'd facilitated the abuse of over 40 children across 3 years. She won't come quietly, Vincent warned as they flew over the Rocky Mountains. The compound has private security in Montana's a castle doctrine state. David smiled coldly. I'm counting on it. The Morrison compound sat on 200 acres of pristine wilderness, surrounded by electrified fencing and monitored by military-grade surveillance equipment. Dr. Rebecca Morrison had inherited it from her grandfather, a paranoid industrialist who believed the government would eventually come for his wealth. As their helicopters circled the property, David could see armed guards patrolling the perimeter. Dr. Morrison was clearly preparing for a siege. She would be disappointed to discover that David had no intention of besieging anything. Instead, he'd purchased the compound. The transaction had been completed that morning through a shell corporation. The previous owners, Dr. Morrison's relatives, had been more than happy to sell once they'd learned about Rebecca's activities. Family loyalty had its limits, especially when federal criminal charges were involved. Dr. Morrison, David's voice echoed across the compound through the public address system. This is David Sterling. You have 1 hour to surrender yourself to federal custody. If you do not comply, you will be removed by force. Through the compound's security cameras, David watched Dr. Morrison's panicked reaction. She was in the main house's communications center, frantically making phone calls. Her security team was taking defensive positions, but their body language suggested uncertainty. Vincent activated a second channel. Security personnel, this is Special Agent Torres. You are ordered to stand down immediately. Dr. Morrison is a federal fugitive, and anyone assisting her will be charged with obstruction of justice. The response was immediate. 4 of the 6 guards laid down their weapons and walked toward the main gate. The remaining 2 seemed determined to make their stand with Dr. Morrison. 43 minutes, David announced. Inside the main house, Dr. Morrison was screaming into her phone. You promised me protection. You said the compound was secure. The voice on the other end was calm, but final. Rebecca, you've become a liability. We're cutting ties. You can't abandon me. I know everything about the network, which is exactly why you become too dangerous to support. The line went dead. Dr. Morrison stared at the phone in disbelief, then began destroying hard drives and burning documents. If she was going down, she intended to take the network's secrets with her. She was too late. Vincent's team had been monitoring all electronic communications from the compound for the past week. Every phone call, every email, every data transfer had been recorded and analyzed. Dr. Morrison's frantic attempts at evidence destruction were merely confirming information they already possessed. 30 minutes, David announced. Dr. Morrison appeared at the main house's front door, flanked by her 2 remaining guards. She was a tall woman in her 50s, silver-haired and aristocratic, but her composure was cracking under pressure. Mr. Sterling, she called out, I know you want justice for your daughter, but you don't understand the bigger picture. Our research was going to benefit all children. David activated his microphone. Dr. Morrison, you systematically poisoned children for money. There is no bigger picture. We were advancing human evolution. In 50 years, enhanced cognition will be the norm. We were simply ahead of our time. 20 minutes. Dr. Morrison's remaining guards began to look nervous. These were mercenaries, not true believers, and their confidence was wavering as federal agents surrounded the compound. Dr. Morrison, Vincent's voice cut through the tension. Your associates have already been arrested. Dr. Chun in Hong Kong, Dr. Volkov in Prague, the entire Swiss operation, all in custody. You're the last one. The lie was effective. Dr. Morrison's face went white as she realized her imagined safety net had disappeared. She turned to her guards, but they were already walking away. 10 minutes. Alone at the front door, Dr. Morrison made her final gambit. Mr. Sterling, I have information about other networks. Children who are still being experimented on. Arrest me, and that information dies with me. David's response was immediate. Dr. Morrison, you seem to be under the impression that I intend to arrest you. The implication hung in the air like a death sentence. Dr. Morrison stumbled backward, finally understanding that David Sterling was not a man who relied solely on legal remedies. 5 minutes. Dr. Morrison ran. She made it exactly 173 yards into the Montana wilderness before David's hunting party found her. Vincent Torres, a former Army Ranger turned FBI agent, had been tracking fugitives for 20 years. Dr. Morrison, despite her paranoid preparations, had never learned the first thing about wilderness survival. They found her hiding behind a fallen log, sobbing and begging for mercy. Dr. Morrison, David said quietly, crouching beside her hiding place. You have information I need. You're going to provide it. The only question is whether you do so willingly or unwillingly. Dr. Morrison looked up at him with desperate eyes. I'll tell you everything. Just please don't hurt me. David's smile was the most terrifying thing she'd ever seen. Dr. Morrison, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm going to do something much worse. What? I'm going to give you exactly what you deserve. Chapter 7. Justice Served. The abandoned psychiatric facility outside Helena, Montana, had been closed for 15 years, but its isolation made it perfect for David's purposes. Dr. Rebecca Morrison sat strapped to a hospital bed in what had once been the electroshock therapy room. Her aristocratic composure finally shattered completely. Please, she whispered as David entered the room. I've told you everything. The complete network structure, all the financial accounts, every child who was harmed. I've given you everything. David consulted the tablet in his hands. Dr. Morrison had indeed been cooperative. 47 children across 12 countries, 8 different research compounds, 14 medical professionals involved, and over $30 million in illegal profits. The scope of the conspiracy was staggering. You have been helpful, David acknowledged. And I always keep my promises. I told you I wouldn't hurt you. Relief flooded Dr. Morrison's face. Thank you. I know I made mistakes, but I also told you I would give you exactly what you deserve. David's voice remained conversational. Do you know what you deserve, Rebecca? Dr. Morrison's relief transformed back into fear. I don't understand. David activated a video screen mounted on the wall. Images began playing, security footage from the various facilities where children had been experimented upon. Dr. Morrison watching as needles were inserted into small necks. Dr. Morrison reviewing test results while children suffered in hospital beds. Dr. Morrison celebrating research milestones while parents wept over permanently damaged offspring. You spent 3 years treating children like laboratory animals, David continued. So I thought it only fitting that you experience the same treatment. Dr. Morrison's eyes widened in horror as she understood. No, please no. The compound you developed for cognitive enhancement, Trial Series 7, I believe you called it, had some interesting side effects. Memory fragmentation, personality dissociation, complete loss of emotional regulation. David prepared a syringe with practiced efficiency. You'll be fascinated to experience your own research firsthand. You can't do this. It's murder. Is it? David checked the dosage carefully. You assured parents that these compounds were safe. Surely you weren't lying to them. Dr. Morrison struggled against her restraints, but Vincent's team had been thorough. Please. I have a daughter. She's only 16. Yes, Jennifer Morrison. Honor student, varsity tennis player, planning to study medicine at Stanford. David's voice was ice. Don't worry. I've arranged for her to receive the same educational opportunities you provided to other children. The lie was perfect. Dr. Morrison's imagination filled in the horrific details, and her screams echoed through the abandoned facility. David let her terror build for several minutes before revealing the truth. Relax, Rebecca. I'm not going to harm your daughter. Unlike you, I don't hurt children. David set down the syringe. But I want you to remember this feeling, this helplessness, this terror of watching someone threaten your child while you're powerless to stop it. Dr. Morrison sobbed with relief, but David wasn't finished. Your daughter will be fine, but she will know exactly what her mother did. I prepared a comprehensive package documenting your crimes, complete with video evidence and victim testimonials. She'll receive it on her 18th birthday. You bastard. I've also established a trust fund in Jennifer's name, $1.7 million, representing your share of the network's profits. She'll receive the money when she turns 25, along with a detailed explanation of where it came from. David's smile was cruel. Every penny will go toward helping the children you helped destroy. Dr. Morrison's face was a mask of despair. What do you want from me? Nothing. You've already given me everything I need to destroy the rest of the network. David headed toward the door. Dr. Morrison, you're going to spend the rest of your life in federal prison. Your reputation is destroyed. Your wealth is gone, and your daughter will grow up knowing exactly what kind of monster her mother was. Where are you going? David paused at the threshold. To visit Dr. Hoffman. He's been asking for you. Chapter 8. The Final Player. Dr. Alex Hoffman had been transferred to ADX Florence, the federal supermax prison that housed the most dangerous criminals in America. His cell was 7 by 12 feet, with a slot for food and a narrow window that showed only a slice of Colorado sky. He'd been in solitary confinement for 2 months, awaiting trial for crimes that would likely result in multiple life sentences. He was not alone. David Sterling sat across from him in the visitation room, separated by reinforced glass, but connected by a secure phone line. Hoffman looked older than his 53 years, his hair gone completely gray and his face gaunt from prison food and stress. Mr. Sterling, Hoffman said, his voice carefully controlled. I assume you're here to gloat. Actually, I'm here to offer you a deal. Hoffman's eyebrows rose. I'm listening. David slid a folder across to the guard, who passed it through the secure slot. Hoffman opened it to find photographs of a private island in the Caribbean, complete with laboratory facilities and research equipment. What is this? Your new home, David replied. Private island, fully equipped laboratory, research funding of $50 million annually, and complete freedom to pursue your work. Hoffman studied the photographs, his eyes sharp with interest. What's the catch? No catch. You continue your research into cognitive enhancement, but with proper ethical oversight and willing adult subjects. You publish your findings in legitimate journals and advance the field through legal means. And my current legal situation? Resolved. Charges dropped, record expunged, full presidential pardon. David's tone was matter of fact. You disappear from the criminal justice system as if you never existed. Hoffman set down the folder, suspicious. Mr. Sterling, this seems too good to be true. What do you really want? David's expression didn't change. I want you to take the deal. Because the island is equipped with the most sophisticated surveillance system in the world. Every moment of your life will be monitored and recorded. Every experiment you conduct will be documented. Every test subject will be carefully screened and protected. Hoffman's face darkened as understanding dawned. You're offering me a prison disguised as paradise. I'm offering you exactly what you want. Unlimited research, funding, and freedom to pursue your work, under conditions that ensure you never harm another child. David leaned forward. Dr. Hoffman, you're a brilliant scientist whose discoveries could genuinely benefit humanity. But you're also a sociopath who sees people as test subjects. So you're going to cage me. I'm going to give you the choice to cage yourself. David activated his tablet, showing surveillance footage from the network's various facilities. These are the children you helped destroy, Doctor. Emma Sterling is just one of dozens whose lives you've permanently damaged in pursuit of your vision. Hoffman watched the footage without emotion. Scientific progress requires sacrifice. Every major advancement in human history has come at a cost. And there's the problem, David replied. You genuinely believe that. You're not evil in the traditional sense. You're something worse. You're a true believer who thinks the ends justify any means. So what's your real offer, Mr. Sterling? David stood to leave. There is no offer, Doctor. I just wanted to look you in the eye before you spend the rest of your life in this concrete box. Hoffman's composure finally cracked. Wait, the island, the research funding, was a fantasy designed to show you exactly what you'll never have. David's smile was predatory. Did you really think I would reward you for poisoning my daughter? You bastard. Dr. Hoffman, you're going to die in this cell. Alone, forgotten, your research legacy reduced to a cautionary tale about medical ethics. David picked up the phone one last time. But before you die, you're going to watch every child you help harm recover and thrive despite what you did to them. David activated his tablet again, this time showing recent footage of Emma at her piano lesson. Her neck pain finally gone, her natural intelligence undiminished by the experimental compounds. Emma is already testing at genius level in mathematics, Doctor. Not because of your drugs, but because that's who she always was. David's voice was soft. You took a brilliant child and tortured her for 18 months, and she's still brilliant. Your research was not only unethical, it was completely unnecessary. Hoffman stared at the screen, his life's work crumbling before his eyes. Goodbye, Dr. Hoffman. Enjoy your concrete paradise. Chapter 9, New Beginnings. 2 years later, David Sterling stood in the garden of his Westchester estate, watching Emma practice violin on the terrace. At 13, she had grown into a remarkable young woman, intelligent, compassionate, and completely unaware of how close she'd come to permanent damage. The criminal trials had concluded 6 months earlier. Dr. Rebecca Morrison received 35 years in federal prison. Dr. Alex Hoffman would die behind bars, his multiple life sentences ensuring he'd never see freedom again. Thomas Morrison, who'd provided medical cover for the network, received 20 years. Katie had received the lightest sentence, 8 years, reduced because of her cooperation and genuine remorse. She was currently serving her time at a minimum security facility in Connecticut, where she spent her days counseling other women who'd made choices that destroyed their families. David had kept his promise. Katie saw Emma once a month during supervised visits, and while their relationship would never recover completely, Emma was learning to forgive her mother's terrible mistake. The other children in the network had varying outcomes. 2 remained in specialized care facilities, their cognitive damage too severe for normal life. 3 others had recovered partially, but would need ongoing support. The rest, like Emma, had been young enough to heal completely. David had established a foundation dedicated to helping the victims, medical care, educational support, counseling services, and legal advocacy. The foundation was funded entirely by the network's seized assets and operated under the simple principle that children were never acceptable casualties in the pursuit of progress. Vincent Torres approached across the lawn, carrying a secure phone. David, we've got the Swiss authorities. They found Dr. Volkov. The last major figure in the network had been hiding in a private clinic outside Zurich, continuing his research with the protection of international banking laws. His capture would close the final chapter of the conspiracy. Good, David replied. And the children he was treating? Safe. All 18 have been removed from his custody and are receiving proper medical care. David nodded, satisfied. The hunt was finally over. As Vincent departed, Emma finished her practice and walked over to join her father. She was taller now, her face more mature, but her smile was the same one that had always melted his heart. Dad, can I ask you something? Always. Do you ever think about Mom? About what she did? David considered his answer carefully. Emma knew the basic facts, that her mother had made terrible choices that led to her imprisonment, but she didn't know the complete scope of Katie's betrayal. I think about how much she loves you, David said finally. Your mother made unforgivable mistakes, but they came from a place of wanting the best for you. Do you still love her? The question pierced deeper than David expected. Did he love Katie, the woman who'd betrayed his trust, endangered their daughter, and shattered their family? Or did he love the memory of who she'd been before greed and desperation corrupted her? I love the mother you deserve to have, David said, and I hate the person she became. Those can both be true. Emma hugged him tightly. I'm glad you saved me, Dad. Emma, you saved yourself. You're stronger than anything they tried to do to you. As the sun set over Westchester County, David Sterling reflected on the choices that had brought him to this moment. He'd built his life on control, precision, and the absolute belief that every problem had a solution. When someone had threatened the most precious thing in his world, he'd applied those principles with ruthless efficiency. The network was destroyed. The conspirators were imprisoned or dead. The children were safe. But the real victory wasn't the punishment of his enemies. It was the sound of Emma's laughter echoing across the garden, the sight of her running toward the house to practice piano, the knowledge that she would grow up strong and whole despite everything that had been done to her. David Sterling had learned something important during his campaign of vengeance. Justice wasn't about destroying your enemies. Justice was about protecting the innocent and ensuring that those who preyed on the vulnerable never had the chance to do so again. He'd accomplished both goals, and he'd done it without compromising the values he wanted Emma to inherit. She would grow up knowing that her father was a man who kept his promises, protected his family, and never backed down from doing what was right. In the distance, Emma called for him to come hear her new piece. David Sterling, businessman and devoted father, walked toward the house where his daughter waited, leaving the darkness of vengeance behind for the light of an uncertain but hopeful future. The pain behind her neck was gone forever. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.